It is the OG Valkyrie type that anyone who's played any of the original GBA games will come to know very, very well and love. It is VAL00 Pretty Prime, with a kit of Mirror Guard, Freeze, Basic Guard, Biped Legs, and the leg ability of Dead or Alive, which buffs all leg stats, minus armor and heavy limit, for every critical hit scored. Now, as I mentioned, anyone who's played the original games will know this Valkyrie type and her potential destruction on the field very, very well. Sadly, in the later games, they did kind of round her out and slightly nerf her just a little bit, but mostly just kind of balance her out and more accomplish her role as a dedicated defender more than an actual fighter on the field. Mirror Guard is a defense-based skill that will put her in defensive stance on the center line. What this stance will do will allow her to intercept any incoming shooting attacks and reverse them back to sender at 1/2 the total damage the original hit would have dealt. So not necessarily a true punish as she used to be in older games, but still enough that she can make her stance very, very clear to incoming shooter types that she will not take it sitting down easily when it comes to defending her or her allies. Right armor freeze, of course, is a basic ailment, of course, that you can generally never go wrong with. Stop the enemy cold in their tracks and make the next hit guaranteed to land and guaranteed to be a critical hit on top of that, no less. And of course, left arm of guard is a basic defense skill that will allow Pretty Prime to intercept any and all incoming blows and tank the damage. And the efficiency of how well she tanks the blow will be, of course, relative to the shoot and melee resist stats on her legs in terms of how well she can actually negate that blow and keep the damage as minimal as possible. I'd say overall, compared to most other Valkyrie types, she's probably one of the better rounded of them all. Of course, aside from Noelle, who's a little more of an aggressive defender type in many cases, since she has a transformation. But in terms of Pretty Prime, she's pretty well balanced for what she does offer. Freeze, of course, does actually tie into her leg ability pretty decently, given the fact that Freeze guarantees the next hit will be a critical, which is what her leg stats are honestly looking for to get those extra buffs. Granted, of course, you generally don't want to smack someone who's frozen with another Freeze attack, as really all that does is unfreeze them. And make it harder to actually juggle other opponents unless you can have someone come behind and finish the job for her. Pretty Prime can honestly hold her own decently well, and is pretty well balanced for what she does offer in terms of her kit and how well all of her parts complement each other. For these reasons, as a pure set score, I do have to rate her a pretty solid 6 out of 10. Kind of middle-of-the-road kind of game, kind of a middle-of-the-road kind of game in this case. Mirror Guard and Freeze are probably going to be the two most used parts on her. The Freeze for sure will be. The leg ability of Dead or Alive can honestly fit on a lot of female bots pretty easily, depending on how you choose to build them, such as, say, Nines Leader with Assassin, or anyone that has a guaranteed hit, or even someone that is maybe using Pretty Prime's legs that has been set up for a free critical hit. For these very same reasons, I do have to rate her as a mixed parts score a pretty solid 7 out of 10, given that she's honestly better off used as mixed parts more than a pure set, given that Basic Guard is probably going to be one of the least used parts on her, or at the very most, more of a last-ditch resort in the case that her sword does go down or she can't use Mirror Guard efficiently or at all.